You're listening to Let Me Tell You Why You're Wrong.
Welcome to episode 157 of the Let Me Tell You Why You're Wrong podcast. I'm Dave Roberts. With me, as always, is my co-host, podcast partner in crime, published author, journalist, Jessica Szilagyi.
Is it really fair for me to claim the published author thing?
I would say so.
We were just talking about this before the show started. I mean...
Yeah, that it's Stanley Eugene?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I guess I could call you his secretary.
I think he does, so...
And maid, cook.
Right.
Yeah, we were just talking before the show, like a month ago, a couple months ago, he was eating out of trash cans and living in people's yards, and now he's the king of the castle.
Yes, now it's a bad day if the space heater isn't on because he worships it and he likes to lay on his fluffy bed in front of it, so...
And it's been raining nonstop down there, so I'm sure...
Oh, it's awful. Is it flooded up there?
No. I've certainly seen it worse. Yesterday, as we record, we had a couple days last week that were great. We did have to do an install in the rain, and of course, my installers don't listen to me. I'm like, hey, I brought a tent. No, it's fine. Then, the skies open up because I have the Weather Channel app. And I knew it was going to happen. Then they're trying to scramble, get a tent popped up over where they're working. I'm also not the guy to go, just do it because I say so. I'm like, your own poor choices. Go for it. Be cold and wet. I'll be sitting in the truck with the heat going. Privilege.
Shocking.
How was your week?
I guess it was better than anyone who lives in Texas.
That's true.
They've had a terrible week.
Yeah, I saw the wind turbines are frozen and apparently leaking oil. As I guess the rubber hoses or whatever they're in there froze and cracked because they've all got to be repaired. And in Colorado, you can't get solar energy when the solar panels are under 10 inches of snow.
10 inches?
Yeah, I don't know. I live in Georgia. 10 inches sounds like a lot. It's probably more like 4 feet.
I'm like, really? They didn't think that through ahead of time? But that's funny.
Yeah, but it's been a rough week out west, and the only thing I can say is I'm glad it's not here.
Yes.
But yeah, rolling blackouts, planned blackouts, because they don't have the equipment and stuff is frozen. Gas, propane, and natural gas are all on the rise because of the increased load. House from a heating and air standpoint, which is the only thing I officially know well. The houses aren't designed to work when it's 10 degrees outside. So people are crying because the inside of their house is 50 degrees. I'm like, yeah, but that's still 50 degrees higher than it is outside.
Yeah, I would rather deal with that inside than be too hot because, you can, it's still uncomfortable, don't get me wrong, but you can layer up, you can cover in blankets. I'd rather that than sweat.
Put the dogs on the bed.
Well, yes.
Which is where the term 3-dog night comes from.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you can make yourself warm. I can only get so naked.
Poor Connie.
Hey. Hey. Well, no. Once you're naked laying under a ceiling fan, that's as cool as you're going to get.
Well, and if there's no power or there's limited power, you might not have that ceiling fan moving
true.
Very much, so...
This is true. Well, we also want to mention that his talent has been returned to God. Rush Limbaugh passed last week.
Super sad.
And like what he had to say or not, he was the granddaddy of talk radio. He created a listenership of millions and millions of people talking every day. And by himself mostly. It wasn't a call-in show. He would have the occasional guest, but Monday through Friday for 3 hours, he would sit down in front of the golden EIB microphone and talk for 3 hours. And had millions of listeners every day that made it a point to spend their lunch hour or the time they're driving around. And I was a Rush listener for a long time. Rush would sit in the shotgun seat and ride with me around Atlanta when I had things to do. I didn't always agree with him, but his presentation of theater of the mind, which is what we do here in a much smaller way, was amazing, and he was a pioneer in using that for politics.
Well, I think, in the hyper-partisan world that we live in, I think we're ignoring, or not we, but there are a lot of people who are ignoring that he had a talent. It's kind of like when Congressman Lewis died. We didn't always agree with him, but the people who are out there just berating him or celebrating almost, it's just sick. He obviously had a talent. That is all, you can't refute that. So, just if I don't know, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all.
Yeah, and you can certainly ignore it. Yeah, there are tons of celebrities that are hard left that were celebrating his passing, and you like him or hate him, he's very, very talented and created an empire with his voice. He's in a audio media and lost his hearing and continued to work.
It's pretty remarkable.
He would have been completely justified in becoming bitter with the loss of his hearing and shutting down the network. And honestly, financially, he'd have been fine. He could have lived the rest of his life plenty comfortably without going and doing a show. But that was his calling. And look, he was unabashedly partisan. And the nice thing is he didn't try to hide it.
I was going to say he was pretty forthright with it, so.
Yeah. And he converted a lot of people who didn't understand where Republicans are coming from. And look, and I've said, I have my issues with the Republican Party, and I didn't agree with Limbaugh and everything, but you could not disagree with his talent, as you said. So, once again, I will agree with you and defy the name of the show. So, a grand jury spends no time dicking around with Dick Donovan. Are you laughing at the line that you wrote for me?
I think it's funny.
So, the Paulding County, which is where I live, district attorney was indicted as news of his retirement breaks. And it literally happened the same day last week, Wednesday.
Worst.
That we get the news that he's retiring, and Chris Carr's like, no. Not before we indict you.
Yeah. So he's is he 74 now?
I think so. Yeah, he's in his 70s.
Yeah.
And he wants you to know that everything still works.
Ugh. I hope his cellmate reads my articles.
Do you think... Okay.
He's not going to prison, but anyway.
Yeah. So he was indicted for lying under oath and violation of oath of office. And what else, Jess?
Bribery, false swearing, 2 counts.
Right. So Donovan had a victim's, we've covered this in the show, just to do a quick recap, a victim's advocate in his office that he decided he was in love with. And he gave her gifts, gave her jewelry, culminating in the, in getting her off the hook, which this is the real violation of oath of office, because he cannot act as a private attorney for anyone. This young woman was, I say young woman, I don't know if you know how old she is, was accused of shoplifting at Walmart. And she called Donovan. And Donovan made personal phone calls on her behalf to have the charges dropped. Then she decided that she didn't like all the attention from him and wanted to keep everything professional. So I'm not excusing her part in all of this, because for a time she was enjoying the attention, but the fact is Donovan runs that office. Matt Lowe, former regular on the show, and he decided he'd rather raise his 15 kids than come on the show every week.
He's so selfish.
Yeah, I know. He's down to 6 kids now. One he shipped off to the Air Force.
Gotcha.
So, but he gets these hours and hours and hours of recordings that she had, and they are creepy. And they can be found on, I'm sure, on the Georgia Virtue. What's that?
Go ahead. You go first. Finish up.
Hours of it would be the high point of my life to make love to you. Again, this is a guy who is late 60s, early 70s when this is happening. She's decades younger. And of course, where we get lying under oath is when he was questioned, he says, well, I never implied I wanted to have sex with her. And they're like, we have a tape, dude. He's like, oh, no.
Well, and he wrote his own, like the statement he wrote is what was it, 93 pages with the court reporter?
Yeah.
That's what led to the big investigation, was because he made those statements under oath by his own decision.
He's an arrogant ass. Rumor is his nameplate on his door says District Attorney himself. He also is like 6'4". He's a tall dude, and he carries this little 380 Ruger LCP outside the waistband. So he takes his jacket off. He's got this little tiny gun on a big old dude, and it looks ridiculous. And I know that's a very petty thing, but I look at them like, really? He also has napkins custom made with buttonholes, so that when he goes out to lunch, he can loosen his tie and button a napkin up to his shirt collar. And I'm not kidding. That is literally what happens if you go and have lunch with Donovan. He will pull out a custom made handkerchief and button it to his shirt.
And how much does he cost taxpayers so far?
Oh God, hundreds of thousands, if not $1 million.
I mean, the settlement alone was $300,000. That doesn't include.
That doesn't include the mediation. That doesn't include the investigator.
Nor does it include attorney's costs.
Right, and then you look at the fact that he has been, for the last, let's just say, year plus, he's a ghost in the office. He goes in, closes the door, and sits down. He's not running the office. His second in command is taking all the calls. The Board of Commissioners won't even call Dick. It just won't. They want nothing to do with him. They actually decreased his salary as much as the commission had authority to do. The sheriff doesn't call Dick. They call his second in command. He's a cancer in that office, which justifiably so. I mean, if everybody heard the tapes as much as they wanted in that office, So he goes to work every day looking at people in the eye after knowing that of all the things that Dick did, he took out an ad in the friggin' newspaper to say one day, which was his code for saying we'll be together. Jack.
Well, it's very unlikely that if he's even convicted, that he'll have any type of punishment given his age. And a lot of times it's more expensive, or they have to make special accommodations for people who were once elected. And if he sent people to prison.
Especially a prosecutor. Right.
But the violation of oath charge can carry up a fine of up to $100,000, which I've never seen fines assessed with it. But I would like to see him, at a minimum, have to pay something. The bribery is $5,000 and false swearing is $1,000 for each count. But make him pay.
I don't know that he has it.
Well, if he gets suspended, he'll get his salary and he's gonna get retirement. So pay.
Well, that kind of sucks too. Is he, as of last month, got he's now in for state retirement. And had COVID not happened, he is the happiest person in the entire world that COVID happened. A few 100,000 people have to die so that he got his retirement. He's okay with it.
Well, that's a pretty strong assertion.
What's he going to do? Prosecute me? He'd have to actually go to court. But I find he has benefited the most outside of Pfizer from COVID, because this could have happened a year ago. He could have been impeached, but once COVID happened, the legislature was wholly concerned with COVID. And impeachment with any elected office is just like impeachment of the president. The House would have to pass articles of impeachment, then the Senate will hold the trial. And I was hoping for that this time last year before everything else broke. So anyway, I guess I'm more opinionated on that because he is right down the street from me.
Yeah.
So I better not get arrested for anything right now until he's actually suspended, which we're guessing is going to happen shortly as we record. That he'll be suspended by the governor, and the governor will then appoint an acting DA, which I have my favorite for it, but with Kemp's appointments, he hasn't done well with them. He wants to check off boxes. Okay, we need a woman. We need a minority. If he could find a black Jewish lesbian, he'd be with a law degree. That's who we'll get, because he is an identity politics or identity type of politician. With that, so it'll be interesting to see who they stick in charge of that office. But I know that our delegation, our state delegation, and our local post commissioners will be stumping for somebody who's in the office and actually knows the job. We'll see if Kemp goes with their recommendation or decides to bring somebody else in because they check boxes for him to say, look how progressive I am. Man, I'm cynical today.
Yeah, a little bit. We should change the name of the show to something about that.
Yeah, well, the COVID's in the house, so we. I guess I'm a cynic today. So limits on policing for profit circumvented in cities with outsourced traffic citations.
Okay, so this is a story that I was working on but it applies all over the state because it's happening literally everywhere. But so what the story specifically that I wrote has to do with the city of Stillmore, which is in Emmanuel County, which is it's a county on its own. Like they do things interestingly there. They also have a lot of really small towns. Like Stillmore only has a population of less than, I think, like just over 500 people or something. But anyway, so what these cities are doing is putting in place speed zone cameras in school zones. And this actually came to be a thing because in 2017, the Georgia legislature passed House Bill 978, and it took effect in 2018. And what it says is that when you have a school zone in either a city or a county, which obviously they're going to be in one or the other, if the school agrees to allow speed zone cameras which are unmanned entirely, to capture license plates, then the local governing authority can collect revenue off of that. And the school gets nothing, but of course, it's all about the children and safety. So what happened in the city of Stillmore is that this company called Red Speed Georgia, it's a private entity which was formed in our state like 2 or 3 months after the law took effect back in 2018. But they're part of a national organization. But anyway, what they do, they approached the city of Stillmore, they approached the police chief and said, hey, we can put these cameras in your town, and we will pay for the equipment, we'll pay for the installation, we will monitor them, we will calibrate them, we'll do everything. All you have to do is sign off on it, allow us to get access to your information and your law enforcement public sharing portal, and we will give you a cut every single month, and you don't have to do anything other than sign off on the tag violations. Unlike red light cameras, these cameras actually only take a picture of the license tag, not the driver in the car or anything like that. There's a lot less information. So in Stillmore, they did this back in 2019, and they actually put them in use, I think, in spring of 2020. And then, of course, school was out. So, and the best part about it, I think it's hilarious. Like, it's all about the school zones because, they can cite you for 1 mile and over, 1 mile per, 1 mile over the speed limit when the school zone lights are flashing. Unlike other places where they don't do that. But they can also cite you if you're going 10 miles per hour over when school is not in session. So it takes pictures all day long. And they worked out an agreement with the city of Stillmore where the city gets 67% of the fines and the company gets 33% plus any fees. And they use this license plate reader. They go through the Georgia DOT, and they have access to the Department of Revenue's database where it's a $75 fine, and if you don't pay it, they can put a lien on your car. And this, there's no other way to describe it because it is 1,000,000% a revenue generation program. The city of Stillmore has had them operational since September 1st of 2020, and they have written I don't know how many they've written because that information is not publicly available because all this data is held by private companies, but they have collected on 564 violations for a total of $42,525 in fines, and $27,600 of that was to the city. Now, we've talked about a lot of my investigations, particularly Oak Park, the town of Register, some others that were policing for profit, and they got in trouble because you can't, the state law, or there is a state law that prohibits how much of your operations as a municipality come from traffic citations and speeding in particular. Like, you can't run a speed trap to run your city. But these are not criminal offenses. They are civil violations, civil summons of sorts, because you can appeal it in municipal court if you request a hearing. But it is 100% a revenue generation thing that this company is profiting off of, especially, and they're targeting these small towns. Like I said, they approached this town, and I have records requests pending in a couple other towns, and they were approached as well. And it's just infuriating. $27,000 in 5 months, essentially, when the first month, I don't know the exact date that it was installed. They only wrote 3 citations, so I'm inclined to think it was installed toward the end of the month. So technically 4 months. 560 violations and $42,000. That's a lot for a town of 500 people.
Yeah, it is. And here's the thing. I despise school zones anyway, because most school zones, they don't have kids walking to school like it's 1920. And some they do. The other thing is, with it being automated, and this last year, the schedules don't necessarily line up. So when Dr. Otot out here decides that we're going to shut schools down because we have too many COVID cases, that doesn't necessarily go to the flashing lights. So you'll have an empty parking lot, a school that's closed, and the lights flashing. And I don't even know how you appeal that. And say, well, it should not have been activated because the school was not in session.
So, of course, like if you request, here's the thing too, $75 is just enough money that it's super beneficial, of course, because that adds up fairly quickly. And if you are a repeat violator, it's $125. And this is my favorite part about all of it. So the red speed violators, like if you get one in Stillmore and then you go to another county, which would be Toombs County, and you get one in Vidalia, even though your first one was in another city in another county, your second one in the school zone in the other county is technically a repeat violation, which I don't really think is. I mean, I understand that's how it works. Like you get one DUI somewhere, it's the second one, but these aren't criminal offenses. There's no points on your license. It doesn't really make sense to me. It's all about money. So I guess it does make sense, but I don't really remember where I was going with this. So I'll let
in policing for profit, we even talked about last week with DUIs. I think it was last week. That's a revenue generator. And these municipalities have been using traffic specifically as a revenue generator for decades, going back to the 80s. It's one of the reasons they have no real interest in lowering speeding offenses. In fact, they just put a sweetener on it with a super speeder. They have no interest in actually reducing DUIs because it's such a revenue generator, one for the municipality, and the other is for the people who fund campaigns like DUI schools, which I don't even know what the hell they cover in a DUI school. I mean, I can sum it up in 30 seconds. If you're drinking, don't drive. All right, y'all have a good day. The vehicle locks, like we discussed last week. So it's all about revenue.
I remember what I was going to say now. So $75 is not enough. Like, no one's going to hire an attorney for $75. Like, if you know someone, you might have them reach out and see what the deal is. But you also, the money is paid directly online to Red Speed. So the city does not. They just get a check at the end of the month or at the end of the reporting period. It's not like you can appeal it. If you want to appeal it, then you request a hearing. But if you don't, there's no instructions. I've seen the ticket or the violations. There's no instructions about how to actually appeal it other than you can request a hearing. They don't mention that you have to come with an affidavit that must be signed or must be notarized, which the clerk of court is a notary, but she can't notarize something for somebody when they come into court like that. So you've got to have an affidavit saying that it wasn't you driving or that it wasn't your car or whatever the case may be to, quote, vindicate you. And so the burden's on you to prove it wasn't you for an infraction that is doing nothing for public safety. And what's even more frustrating, I mean, particularly in Stillmore, so because it's a small town, it's not like it's a thriving metropolis by any means, but they do have Kreider Foods, which is like a plant and manufacturing facility, and then they have the school. Well, particularly with these plants and manufacturing, which is fairly common in towns like that, you have people who share cars, households who have multiple people driving. I mean, the demographic is a lower income demographic, and it would not be uncommon for somebody else to be driving a car. And so while you can go and say, well, I was actually at work at that time, or that wasn't me, or I can prove that it was this person, first of all, they have a provision in there that allows you to transfer. Like if you show up with your sister and you're like, my sister was driving my car, they'll be like, oh, cool. Well, we're going to have your sister pay because it's all about revenue, which is totally bogus too. Because in a criminal offense, you only have to prove that it wasn't you.
Right. I don't have to go Perry Mason. I don't have to prove that somebody else murdered that person. All I have to prove is I did not. I don't have to prove that. I have to create a reasonable doubt that it was me. And look, you're talking about lower income demographic. It happens here all the time. If Connie's parked behind me and I need to run to the store, I hop in her car. If I'm parked behind her and she needs to go run, do anything, which usually I'm the gopher because that's my role in life. But if she needs to run out, she grabs the keys to my truck. It's not even a thing because it's not my truck or her car, it's ours. And then if you've got a kid, you got 2 kids that are over the age of 16. You're talking about 4 people in a house, or if you're Matt Lowe, you got 30 people in a house that may take one of the cars and run out. That in and of itself creates reasonable doubt in a criminal trial. Well, if you're not irritated enough, allow me to just pile on for you. So I thought I demonstrated with the last story how irritated I am, but go ahead. Yeah, but wait, there's more. So I mentioned in the beginning that the school has to sign off, and then the law enforcement agency applies to the DOT because they're the ones that have to apply. That's who they apply for when they have radar permits and stuff like that. And so that's how the code section reads. Well, there have been some issues because schools don't want to sign off. This isn't always the case, but in some jurisdictions, the schools don't want to sign off on the devices or the cameras because they're not getting any money. So they won't sign off on it, and then the local government can't apply. Well, the House has House Bill 248 to change that, and they are striking schools from it entirely and putting it all in the hands of the local governing body with the approval of the law enforcement agency, which is just total crap. I mean, it's Alan Powell, Jay Collins, John Corbett, the same old, and then Mike Walensky, which makes zero sense because, other than he's a Democrat, but they all are sponsoring the bill. And so, first of all, you've got municipalities around the state right now who aren't doing this by the book, so they're going to change the code section to make it what they want. And then on top of that, you've got municipalities who aren't allowed to do it. And so the same House of Representatives, and eventually the Senate, that proclaimed that policing for profit in the state of Georgia is not allowed and is unconstitutional and should never happen, is about to codify it so that it can happen on a civil basis, basically, so they can circumvent that prohibition. Because why not? And one more thing, Red Speed has made $45,800 in donations to Georgia lawmakers since December of 2020. No.
Not like not even 3 months, really. It's insane because they had to stop, what was it, the 9th because they went into session. So in a 45-day period, basically, they dished out $45,000 to governor, lieutenant governor. They each got $5,000. Blake Tillery, Billy Hickman, David Ralston, Micah Gravely, all of them. Freaking Trey Kelly.
That's funny.
Is it?
Now that's funny.
No, you want to hear something
Kelly getting money from someone who's going after traffic offenses. That's funny.
You want to hear something super funny, but kind of awkward and a little bit painful, but entertaining for those of us playing at home? Okay, this is off topic a little bit, but it's about Trey Kelly. So I was watching the House Rules Committee, I guess Wednesday, and Chairman Smith said something. So there's a bill to change how drivers drive around bikers. And right now it just says you have to give a reasonable distance between them, and they want to change the law to say that you have to slow down to less than 10 miles over this posted speed limit and move over and do this, and it's just crazy. So after the bill sponsor presented, Chairman Smith says, I'm surprised that Representative Jaspers, who's in North Georgia, said, I'm surprised he wasn't, sponsoring this bill because he drives his truck with a 2x4 attached to the front, sending out over the side so he can knock the bikers down. And like, some people laughed, but first of all, Chairman Smith is sitting next to Trey Kelly, which I know that Trey Kelly didn't hit someone with his bike, but it's still awkward, and he can't laugh. And then also, let's not forget Blake Tillery. He killed a biker on the campaign trail. Lawmakers, by and large, are pretty freaking dangerous for bicyclists. Let's not joke about putting a 2x4 on the front of our pickup truck and knocking them off the road.
First of all, inappropriate humor is my favorite.
Okay, but not here.
Fine. But yeah. I mean,
it's
look,
just awkward.
I'm the kind of guy who will tell a joke over a casket. So, yeah, and I hate bikers, too. I often have fantasies, if I'm stuck behind them, of opening the truck door and popping them and getting them out of my way.
That's a bit intense. I mean, I don't want to cause them harm, but I also don't want to share the road. But I just think it's awkward. It was very awkward. It wasn't a whole lot of laughter. It was just kind of okay, next.
Well, a better joke would be, well, if you hit anybody, make sure to call Trey.
Oh my God.
That would be better. Yeah, and now I'm giving comic notes to lawmakers.
Yeah.
And look, again, my inappropriate humor is not meant to minimize the fact that a man died in a ditch, suffering for over an hour before anybody came to his aid. It's not meant to minimize that. However, making Kelly squirm a little bit, it does amuse me. But this is a good time to remind everybody, these are our opinions and not necessarily those of anyone not appearing on the show or any company for which we may work or that we may own. Though I'm not sure I can distance myself from Dr. Cool. So,
but you may try.
Yeah. I really should. I mean, anybody who listens to the show, I don't want that a-hole coming to my house. Jessica, what happened last week with the legislature?
Other than making terrible bike jokes, they introduced legislation to repeal the citizen's arrest statute. Sort of. I love the legislature's suggestions for improving something. It's never just let's repeal it and then hold off and see how things go. It's repeal and replace. And that's just somehow they've managed to come up with a worse idea. But so basically this was a Kemp initiative. Burt Reeves, his floor leader, is sponsoring it. And of course, I think he's the only Republican, and then everyone else is a Democrat. Because pandering. Obviously, this is one of the ones that was this is one of two statutes that applied or that was claimed during the Ahmaud Arbery controversy in spring of 2020 because the McMichaels claimed that they were going to detain Ahmaud. So anyway, this legislation repeals the code section as it is, and then it comes back with a few specific instances that a person could detain another person before law enforcement gets there, to include a shopkeeper's privilege when they have probable cause to believe that someone has committed a theft in their own business. Restaurant owners and their employees can detain someone who they believe is attempting to dine and dash. There's a provision allowing weight inspectors to detain individuals when needed in the course of their duties. Private security officers and private investigators to detain individuals when conducting their duties in the performance of their business. On that one, private security, I understand, but private investigators, I certainly do not. If someone's investigating me, you aren't detaining me for jack buddy or ma'am. And then they say, the code section goes on to say, those are the only exceptions, but they go on to say that the offender either must be released or the owner or employee must contact law enforcement within an hour. Okay, time the F out. Law enforcement cannot just detain you for an hour. So why could a store owner?
Look, you try to detain me, whether you think I stole something or not, it's not a great idea.
No, I'll leave my number for you, and you can, if you want to call the cops because you think I'm doing something, you can have them reach out.
Well, I'm the a-hole that if someone stops me, I need to check your receipt, I keep walking.
God.
Unless I'm at like Costco or something where I have a membership, I mean, I need to check your receipt. No, you don't. Then, of course, if I get accused of shoplifting, I'll just call Dick Donovan, and he'll make a phone call to the prosecutor to go away, right?
Yeah, but then you're going to have to deal with newspaper ads and unwanted advances for the next year.
I don't think I have the legs for it.
But no, like, it really bothers me that they want to give them an hour.
But shopkeepers already have that privilege. That's old as time itself, that you could take a shoplifter and sit them down in the security office. This is not new.
Here's the thing, though. This is why this doesn't make sense to me. Okay, if let's say that you own a store and you think I'm stealing something. Well, if you detain me and then you call the police and the police ultimately arrest me, the arrest cannot be thrown out because the shopkeeper detained me too long or without. I mean, because those protections only protect you from the government. So an officer would still be able to use their discretion and say, well, they held them back and we're not going to charge them, so this doesn't make any sense. Like, this is just, whoever is worried about these things is worried for all the wrong reasons.
Yeah, I don't know what problem this solves. One, I'm not going to be detained by anybody private. Now, if you do your due diligence as an officer and say, okay, Mr. Roberts, you're under arrest. Say, okay, well, let me call my lawyer. Yeah, in fact, I'd be sending my lawyer a text from the back of the car, like, okay, come and get me. But if a shopkeeper says, hey, I need you to come back here, no. So they can't. This is again a solution looking for a problem. You can't physically detain me. They can't lay their hands on you.
A person's either going to run or they're going to hang back. Like, right. It's either one or the other. And
the dine and dash thing, the whole thing of dining and dashing is dash.
Right. Well, and then there's the two provisions about, quote, use of force and defending they say they don't want anything in the statute to limit or alter, because we have a fairly broad self-defense statute, that there's nothing that's in here that says you can't defend yourself or your property or our stand your ground statute. However, it says it prohibits the use of force if it's likely to cause death or bodily harm to detain someone, unless it's to protect self, others, one's habitation, or to prevent a forcible felony. Well, right. You're literally just undoing what you did and then putting it back with the same provisions, basically. And Democrats are like, oh yes, this is great. But
even when I was a kid, I was my first real job, and I put quotes around real job that I paid taxes on. I was 15 years old. And I was a bag boy. If we caught somebody stealing, you would, quote unquote, detain them in the back, and things would fall on them. You'd beat the living snot out of them. And when the police showed up, like, oh, they fell down as we were walking them back to the office. Look, you can't lay hands, especially in today, you can't lay hands on them. So you can't physically restrain them. All you can do is say, sir, please, if you wouldn't mind coming back to the office and wait for the police.
Well, and a forcible felony, or to prevent a forcible felony.
Well, no
First
kidding.
Of all, that's a low threshold, because if don't you remember when we as a state made it a felony to, if you're shoplifting, to run out the emergency fire door. Do you remember when they did that 2 years ago?
Yes.
So, I mean, I understand that it's a forcible felony, but like that is such a broad thing. You don't know what they're going to do. So if you claim that you thought they were going to do X, Y, and Z, or you felt there was a risk for this, then you're right back in the same boat with the citizens arrest law that we do have. It literally does nothing, and Democrats are touting it as a great bill that's just going to they're so excited.
What are the chances it passes?
Probably pretty damn good since it's the governor's bill. And so they put out a press release that had all these quotes from the Attorney General and the GBI and Georgia State Patrol and someone else. All these quotes just like foaming at the mouth in support. Of course, if you read the Georgia Virtue, you'll only see quotes from the Georgia Department of Public Safety, and that's it, because I don't put quotes from Chris Carr or the GBI on our site unless it's absolutely necessary, because I'm not going to let them just, fan the flame of their own self-righteousness that I can't stand. So anyway, I don't know what they said about it, but they all support it. No, I'm not petty, but it's my damn site. So anyway, this is what... he's Dean of the House for the Democrats, Representative Smyre said. He said, "I support the repeal of Georgia's citizens arrest statute that has been on the law books of our state since 1863. The citizens arrest law is outdated and ripe for abuse by those untrained citizens where 911 is widely available for calling law enforcement to respond. As with the 2020 Anti-Hate Crimes Act, now is the time to remove this cloud over our state. We should not allow citizens to take the law into their own hands and senseless violence to take place. We must act now."
Kiss my... Police officers are citizens. I don't like the untrained portion of that. I have a moral and ethical obligation to stop a forcible felony. You shouldn't have to worry about the intricacies of the law when you're doing it. You shouldn't have to worry about the repercussions of that or have to get an attorney to help you defend that, because we know that it all depends on jurisdiction. And I'm about to go way off in the weeds now, but I'm sure you saw the story last week about the San Francisco shop owner who was arrested for shooting at somebody who was robbing his store. They arrested him. So, and don't tell me that can't happen here in Georgia, because we've got some crazy ass backwards jurisdictions. Yeah, well, we found that out with Paul Howard.
Yeah.
Who is in private practice, thankfully.
Thankfully? He should be in prison.
Well, take a victory where you can, Jessica.
Don't tell me what to do.
I will.
I'm not gonna listen.
Good God. You are a child.
No. So, anyway, I just think that this is it's obvious pandering.
Of course it is.
And they give civil immunity for business owners and restaurant owners who properly detain individuals so they can't be sued for false arrest or false imprisonment or things of the sort. Yet, everyone's calling. Here is your reason why Democrats, Republicans do it too, but on this type of stuff, Democrats are hypocritical monsters. They want the repeal of qualified immunity and sovereign immunity for elected officials and government entities because they don't want things like false arrest and false imprisonment to just go unannounced or unaccounted for. Yet here, they are willing to grant individuals civil immunity from being sued or held accountable for freaking detaining people on a probable cause belief that some random, quote, untrained person, but based on what they think.
And all this goes back to Arbery.
Well, yeah.
Because two jackasses were already violating existing law.
And that jackass was a law enforcement officer, or a retired one.
Yeah, but exactly.
So he wasn't untrained. You're right.
He was trained. Yeah, but those under existing law, you cannot chase somebody down with a shotgun and blow them away. whether or not they were creeping around the house. And look, Arbery was absolutely casing the house. He absolutely was. But you still don't chase him down.
Well, that's a bold-ass statement to make.
Man.
We'll say that for another show. Go on.
Yeah. So, but you still, you call the police, you take pictures, you pull out your iPhone. There's no reason to do what they did. It was already illegal, and they're already indicted. So I don't know what the hell this solves, other than the need to get elected.
Nah.
I don't know, man. We did have pre-dawn hearings on Georgia election bills in secrecy.
Yeah, it's not a long story, and I know we're running short on time, so I just wanted to mention, so it was something that happened in the Senate. Of course, there's all this legislation on changing voting and things like that. And the Senate, this isn't the first time they did it with these things, but this session is the first time that I've seen them do it. They've been holding meetings at 6:30 and 7 a.m. I don't know. I think that's a really bad idea. That sounds a terrible message because you can't even get into the Capitol buildings until 7 as members of the public. And of course, they aren't allowing public in a lot of the meetings, but they didn't post an agenda for what the meeting was, and they didn't have a video stream. And I just feel like, first of all, it slaps in the face of all transparency, which they're supposed to be held by for open meetings and open government stuff as well, but it's just poor form and unethical. And so it's the Senate though. That's their mantra.
Yeah. Unethical. Yeah, it is. Yeah. They're not, the Capitol is more or less closed to anybody unless you're a lobbyist, of course. And then not live stream it. Look, it's one thing.
It's on purpose.
Yeah, it's one thing if you have a technology issue, and I still think they should. If they have a technology issue, they can't get the live stream up, and you're not allowing anybody in. You don't hold the hearing.
Exactly.
You say, look,
and this is their third session into COVID, for so to speak, because they started in. They adjourned in the middle of COVID. They came back in the summer, and here we are again a year later. You should have had every room equipped and then equipped a little bit more for this.
It's not that hard.
No.
You've done it. I say so, but
in rural Georgia,
you carry a camera with you and you set it up and you can live stream them.
Yeah.
I know. I've seen you do it. So even say, well, this room isn't equipped. Well, you take a tripod, you put the camera on there, and you hit Facebook Live and go, okay.
Here we are, right?
Yeah, go. If my Board of Zoning Appeals meetings are streamed and are on TV, if Paulding County can do it for an insignificant board of nobodies that meet once every other month for 15 minutes, if they can live stream that, the damn Senate can. So I don't know, man. I know that's sorry. Again, COVID in the house.
Mm-hmm.
So, Jessica, do you have any closing thoughts?
It's just brief. I read an article last week that said 9 out of 10 restaurants in New York City could not afford to pay their rent in December, which was a increase from 80% in June of last year. And they recently started allowing them to have indoor dining at 25% capacity, and they're all up in arms saying, well, we need 50% to stay afloat. And of course, 50% capacity is like literally just making ends meet when they've already been suffering for 10, 11 months. So I just, I feel for business owners in New York City for a number of reasons, even though they chose to live there and chose to elect people like that. But at the same time, I don't feel bad for them, because at some point you've got to just say F you and be free. And so it's just interesting that they are, angry at and desperate, but still willing to rely on the people who have put them in a position to be angry and desperate.
Man, yeah, a restaurant cannot survive on 25%. You just can't.
No, they would have made their restaurants 25% or 75% smaller if they could.
Right.
It's stupid.
So yeah, you can't survive on that. You can't take 75% of your business, throw it away, and go, okay, now we're going to survive. New York's a mess anyway. And here's the thing: you talk about they choose to live there. I think Musk is the one who said it about people leaving California to go to Texas. Is leave your politics there. Because these folks, it's happened to Florida. These folks leave because they don't like the tax structure. They don't like the government of New York. And in my experience, because this is where I grew up, they moved to Florida, and then they start to change the politics of Florida. Because Florida used to be pretty redneck when I was growing up. Well, I mean, could be that I'm a redneck, but it was the influx of New Yorkers that really changed the politics of Florida. Because they brought their view of the world with them when they moved to Florida. And they all moved to Florida because there's no state income tax. So when you do well in New York, you can move to Florida and buy twice the size of the house for half the price, and then you have no state income tax. That's a big financial win, but they want to bring their crappy politics with them. I don't know, man. There are going to be a lot of restaurant owners that are going to be waiting tables when this is all over. So I'll do that as my closing thought. I do want to say, if you like what you heard, share us on social media. If you don't like, inflict us on your friends. We appreciate every download we get. We certainly appreciate any feedback we get. So you're always welcome to PM me or PM Jessica with no more than two criticisms.
Yeah,
per week.
Much. That's.
So, thank you very much for listening. For Jessica Szilagyi, for Eric Cumby, our editor, I'm Dave Roberts. Have a great week.